Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Roydell Clarke. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to answer one simple question, and that simple question is, who do I believe will benefit from the Generation Gap podcast? Okay, so who do I believe listening or watching the Generation Gap podcast will gain some value from it? So if you're unfamiliar with the Generation Gap podcast, I, Roydell Clarke, have three current projects I'm working on: the Soloist Project, the Generation Gap Project, and the Ground Zero Project. So it's one of the three projects I'm currently working on. It's a podcast that consists of myself and my dad as a host. It may evolve to have guests on the show as well, but we cover a variety of topics, complicated topics, simple topics, go deep in all of them: social, economic, political, crypto, marketing, mathematics, business, philosophy, what you name it, we go into it. We have those conversations. And this isn't something that we do different from what we've always done. We've always held these conversations. Our conversations have always been to the length of a podcast format. So an hour to 2 hours, to 3 hours, even on occasion. And so it's just a matter of taking that conversation, formatting it in a certain way that can be digestible and a bit more easy to understand as far as the flow of it goes. And just throwing it out there and seeing who it resonates with. So the question in this video is, who do I think would benefit from it? I think everyone would benefit from it. And that does sound like a cop-out answer, so that's not where I'm going to leave it. I'll start with one, parents. I think parents can see what happens when you continue on your continuous learning, when you continue to learn and evolve into the later years of adulthood for your children, for your kids. You're able to facilitate and have certain conversations. One thing my dad always reminded me of is the conversations that we have. For me to call him up and just talk about accounting and ask him about accounting, and call him up and ask him about music, or go over here and asking about programming, or go over here and asking about philosophy, and going into the philosophies of it, the just going very deep, going very abstract, all these different ways to look at it. This is not a normal thing. Talk sports. This is not something that always happens, and this is one thing that my dad has always reminded me of. So I think from a parental perspective, I think parents definitely benefit from this, because they can see, oh, if I continue to evolve and learn, and with tools like ChatGPT, there's no reason why we can't do it. There's no reason. One of the ways that I've used ChatGPT in order to understand trading, for example, certain trading elements, because I had played sports for a long time, I've played basketball for many years, I set up a whole chat prompt to say, okay, here's these trading concepts, here's bearish divergence, here's what it says about it. I attached the FIBA basketball rule book. So all the rules that are compiled, throw it into the LLM, throw it into ChatGPT, and say, hey, look, explain to me these trading concepts using basketball scenarios. Use the name Roy as the primary person, and explain to me how this worked at a 6th grade level, at an 8th grade level. And it was able to do just that, broke down the concepts in a way, mention bearish divergence or a change of character, what that actually means. It's like if you have a defender in front of you, cross the defender, now you're focused on the basket, but you're definitely going to come back this way. Things to consider, right? So all of these things are readily available for us. We just need to be able to use the tools as we've always done, but now more than ever with these tools that are able to create itself, create things beyond. There is no reason. So I think number one, first and foremost, from an education perspective, from a parental perspective, there is tremendous benefit in these conversations, because we can go back and forth on many different topics. So obviously you're going to be more well-versed, and the more well-versed you are, the more adept you would be able to connect and communicate with your children, but be able to understand where they're coming from, right? And that's kind of the intergenerational conversation thing that is happening that we will also have in our conversation. So number one, I'll say parents, in no particular order, but that's what I'm starting with. I think two, definitely anyone in the field of education. I recently worked as a university academic advisor, so I have that experience there. I've spoken to and helped thousands of students not only plan their university pathway, but also post-university, right? Their plans after, and personally helping them balance, right? Different ways to go about things. School is great, it's important, but it can't be the triumphant factor, the ultimate thing. You have to find balance even within this. And so that really helped me gain the perspective that I'll be able to bring to Generation Gap, understanding what it is my generation is going through and bringing that out. And then obviously from my dad's perspective, able to give me that longer now perspective on things, right? When you're in a situation, it's tough to really understand it. Taking yourself out of it or having somebody who was not in it give you some insight, we'll be able to do that as well. So I think there's value from an educational standpoint. I think there's value for teachers, for parents, but I also think there's value for anyone who has any relation to what I've done, right? From if you have a passion to self-express, that is the soloist. That is understanding that, great, I might be succeeding on paper as far as everyone's concerned, professionally, but there's things personally I always want to get out and get out there. This podcast, my Roydell Clarke YouTube channel, is definitely for you, and that will be a reoccurring and underlying theme within the Generation Gap podcast. You'll see these conversations. Also, I will say specifically for young black men who, wore their pants sagging at one point in time or their hat backwards and have a, really rebellious nature to them, there's constructive ways to move about that. There's ways that you can use that to benefit you, right? If you know how to navigate certain things. And so you'll see this conversation. You'll see people that look like you, speak well, have conversations, disagree. Black men disagree with each other of different ages, being very respectful, but also learning, gaining value. You learn how to speak. You learn how to assert yourself without being disrespectful. And I think that can go across the board too, young men in general. But I think as far as the aspect of seeing men like you with, a certain upbringing, with a certain vigor, certain swagger to them, talk a certain way, move a certain way, have conversations about things, and have put the time in to be able to contribute to a conversation. Everyone has a right to their opinion, but not every opinion should be valued the same way, right? Just as how you go to a doctor and you value the doctor's opinion over your aunt who just says something about, let's just say you need a surgery, you're definitely going to value the doctor's opinion more because they have more information, right? There's an asymmetry that exists there. So we definitely want to value one more than the other. But looking at this, you'll be able to tell, okay, these are two people that really have put their time in. Yes, they differ in opinion. And this makes for a great conversation. This makes for a great learning opportunity. So I think there's a lot of value. I can continue to dissect it. I will say, for example, and I think I'll end it here, somebody who I mentioned the Generation Gap project that I'm currently working on, he had said that he and his father were not on the best of terms. He didn't really grow up with his father, and only now in his later adult years, in his later 20s, is he's now reconnecting and trying to make something of that dynamic, right? So he doesn't have much of a reference point when it comes to father-son conversations, father-son, what does a productive or a healthy, perhaps, relationship with a son and his father. He was interested in seeing it just for that, right? Just to see the communication, right? And gaining that insight on, what can be had. And again, also for men, for those of us that still want to have a family and have children, hear what my dad has to say on it, hear what I have to say on it, being in a relationship now for quite some time and considering having children soon. So a lot of different aspects we can go into, but I feel those I think those are a good place to start, right? When I talk about who can benefit from this. So if you fall into any of those categories, remember, this is not an exhaustive list. I assure you, especially in the formats that we are going to go about it, you will derive value. You'll take something from it, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your background. Just give it a shot. Remember, there's a quote, don't remember where, but it said, the best thing to do is the right thing. The second best thing you can do is the wrong thing. The worst thing you can do is nothing at all. So if you take a shot on it, at least you did the second best thing, and I'm sure you'll derive something from it. It'll be the best thing. I promise. And if not, write it in the comments so I know. All right, so I'll end it there. Thank you guys for taking the time to listen to this video. I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.